We started this course from so-called health postures, the most basic postures, the most basic Zhang exercises. Then I introduced some very basic Shili Mozart Wu exercises and supplementary Shuai Shou, swaying arms, relaxing by swaying arms exercises. Now back to Zhang, the postures. In the first module, I will introduce Hunyuan Zhuang. This is the most basic of so-called combat postures. In some schools, this one is called Hunyuan Zhuang. We call this Chengbao Zhuang. And Hunyuan Zhuang is this one. In some schools they call this Maodong Zhuang. Hunyuan Zhuang. Zhuang meaning the postures. Hunyuan, the unity. There's also some idea of roundness inside. Everything being one, everything being unified. Hunyuan Li, unified force, unified strength. Hunyuan Zhuang, the posture in which you are focusing on developing this strength. Of course, in all other there are some changes, but all the time you're working with Hunyuan Li. Hunyuan Zhuang, we will practice in several different ways using different kinds of Mo Li, feeling strength. There will be next postures introduced, and again we will repeat those methods of Mo Li. So basically 5 different methods of Mo Li. Of course they have some sub-variants, so there are many possibilities. But those standard, very basic are 5. First, forward and backward Mo Li. Because those 5 Mo Lis are forwards, backwards, opening, closing, upwards, downwards, changing between those directions, and then also working with any other direction. So first, forwards, backwards. But it's not just forward, backwards. When learning Shili, you already learned that when we think about some direction of force as the main direction of force of movement, there are also some additional directions. So at least the main and 2 additional directions. And in Zhang we will practice the same way. With those basic health postures, I introduced some very basic Mo Li, where you didn't think about some additional forces, just forward, backward, one force pushing you and another force giving some resistance. This is very simple, very easy, very good at beginning. Then the Mo Li will become more complex. Also in so-called health postures, we could practice this more complex Mo Li. But now, for some time, if you practice health postures, focus on relaxing, feeling comfortable, this is the basic feeling which was explained before. And if you practice Mo Li, practice this most basic, where it's very easy to keep relaxed, and even practicing this Mo Li could be some way of relaxing, helping you to relax. And then practicing more advanced Molly, you of course trying to stay relaxed, but at the same time it will be a bit more difficult because you will have idea of bigger forces, of bigger resistance. So it's not good to start this way with idea of big resistance from the very beginning, because it will usually create too much tension, a lot of local tension, so it will be quite wrong way of practice. So you must have basis, it must be easy for you to stay relaxed while feeling some strength. Then gradually you could keep this state with idea, with feeling of much bigger resistance and of much bigger power. But now we introduce this basic combat pose quite early. So you probably not ready to work with idea of big resistance. So when we are starting with the ideas, how to use mind, what are the directions of forces, but you think about relatively small resistance. It will be a bit different than in those health postures, a bit, just a little bit more than that, but not much. And if you will notice that it's difficult for you to stay relaxed, then still could do this in more relaxed way with idea of smaller resistance, just or practicing the same way like health postures, or don't focus too much on combat posture, focus more on health postures at this stage if you feel that it's too difficult and it's not too easy for you to relax practicing this way. So Hun Yuan Zhuang Qian Hou Mo Ji. Hun Yuan Zhuang, this posture. Qian Hou Mo Ji, Qian Hou Mo Li, feeling strength in forward and backward direction. Of course, forward and backward is just the main direction, and there are some additional directions. So first, just the form of this posture. When introducing Shi Li exercises in Dimpa Bu position, I already explained Dimpa Bu position of your feet. So standing this way, body straight but relaxed, feet together, heels together, toes pointing those ways. Now I'm sitting, for example, on the right leg, could be left of course, because Shi Li exercises, combat postures, we normally, when teaching, demonstrating one side, but you should know that you should practice on both sides. One side for some minutes, then change side. And could change more times, of course, if you're practicing the posture for longer time. So weight on right leg, knee and toes on one vertical line. Moving this foot in the direction where toes are pointing, but moving it outside a few centimeters. Distance between both feet, of course, when you practice Actually, it's the same. It's such that from this posture, if I stand on toes and turn, and I will be back in pin bull position with feet about shoulder width apart. Weight. So I've got 7 in the back, 3 in front. Most of weight on back leg. Actually, it means small part on front leg. Body at some angle. Not frontal position here, but some small angle. This shoulder just fingers length, a few centimeters in front of this one. And talking about those points of hips, exactly the same. Looking straight forward, the direction where toes of this foot are pointing. This knee is also bent, and you see that this knee is behind this ankle, or even behind this. Not here, not here, not here. See? But like this. Of course, head pulling up. Here, idea of sitting down, keeping something between your legs, your body as if being in something like something elastic, or here we use idea of a tree. So there's very big tree, and you're standing inside the tree, so you feel the tree on all surfaces of your body. Now about hands. This is chain bow zhuang. Now if I stand in chain bow zhuang and turn to like this, from ping bu to ding pa bu, I'm not changing position of my arms in relation to my body. So like this, like this. Not this way, because sometimes people do it like here. It was like this, the same angles here and here. And now here, bigger angle, here, smaller angle. Okay, in some schools they practice this on purpose, but what we do is basically the same as here. Chain bow zhuang, changing here your legs position, becoming Hun Yuan Zhuang. Only a very small change. What is this change, small change? This palm moving a bit higher. Not trying to move your whole arm, but try to move, just to move this palm a bit higher. Shoulders relaxed. So why before your palms were chest, shoulder level, now one of them is still there, one is like half width of the palm higher, somewhere here. Elbows pointing out, but at the same time sinking down. So in some schools you will see people practicing like this, like this. We practice like this. This is about the so-called roundness of the posture, of the structure. What does it mean? round is a form which is strong, the same strong in all directions. So, for example, if my arm is more straightened, there comes some force here. This is quite strong structure. It's easy to take the oncoming force without collapsing. But in the same position, if force here comes from the side, this is long lever, it's very difficult to take this force coming from outside. Now, if my palm is very close to my body, it will be very easy to take this force from the sides. But if force comes here from the front to me, it's very difficult not to collapse. So this here, this structure is weaker. So while it's not so close, not so far, somewhere in the middle, there will be situation when it's relatively strong in this and this direction. Here and also here. Not so much strong like in this, but here is very weak the other way. And now it's the same strong in all those directions. So this is the idea of roundness. Now, if it's round here, but elbows like this, if there come vertical forces, it's not so strong as in this and this direction. Here it will be weaker. If force is coming here, also when force is coming here, it will be weaker. But if you keep it like this, then the structure is changing and it's becoming stronger in this vertical direction. So it's becoming more round. So it's relatively strong. If you're talking about this forward, backward, relatively strong if you're talking about left, right, or opening, closing, and also relatively strong if you're talking about this vertical direction. So, in other ways, because it's evenly strong in all directions, it's round. So this is the roundness. So it's Hunyuan Zhuang here. This palm, this is this palm over this foot, and you're looking forward over this palm. This is Hunyuan Zhuang posture. And the basic idea is that you standing inside a big tree. So the tree is around you, here around you. You feel that tree, very big tree around you. At the same time, here inside is this idea of this feeling of embracing a tree. Actually, it's not embracing whole tree, but it's like here is the center of the tree, the vertical line going through the center of the tree. So this is the core part of the tree, so you are embracing the core part of the tree, but at the same time your whole body is embraced by the tree. This is the basic idea, some basic feeling. Okay, you have some feeling of something everywhere from all sides. Then start practicing Mo Li. Qian Hao, forwards and backwards. Of course, with those additional directions. So the basic idea is I'm standing inside the tree, feeling it everywhere, but staying relaxed. Then I'm trying to move forward, and I'm actually moving a bit forward, but the tree is creating some resistance, so I'm overcoming some resistance. Slowly, 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 several seconds, and stop. When you stop for several seconds, you practice Zhang in the same way as the health postures, but the main focus is relax, feeling comfortable. After several seconds, you will change direction. So now you will think about trying to move back and everywhere, meeting resistance of the tree and overcoming resistance of the tree. It's slow, very slowly practicing. Several seconds, stop again for several seconds, and then change direction. This is the main idea. On one hand, you have idea that you're trying to overcome some resistance, but on the other hand, it should be this feeling that it's some energy, some flow of something like you practiced before. You develop this feeling. So now you use your mind, direct your intent, and this energy is moving, your body is overcoming the resistance. So you could do this without using force in typical way, without tensing too much, without becoming stiff. This is the main idea, but of course there's much more inside, some forces which will be the same forces as when you practice Shi Li exercises. Remember, you did Ping, Tui, Shi Li. You also learned Kai He Shi Li. You learned Bo Shui Shi Li. Weight moving from so-called 7 and back to 5-5. And we are talking about some forces there, about some springs. Remember, it's not about visualizing springs, but about using the idea as if there was a spring. What would be feeling then? And it's this feeling is what is important. So it was like back leg pushing, feet pressing on the ground, the power from the ground moving through your body being directed and forward. At the same time, ball and toes of front foot, as if meeting resistance, as if you're trying to press them into the ground, somewhere in this direction, forward, downward. At the same time, as if squeezing springs, as if squeezing something between your both legs, everywhere, on all levels. As if there was spring between this knee and this area, you're also squeezing it. Both legs are straightening, you are not shifting this knee forward, so your body is also moving up, standing up. Okay, this is to 5-5 position in Shili exercises. Now just short repetition of this, because in Jiangchuan it will be the same, almost the same. Some difference. The difference will be that the movement will be smaller. But inside it's the same movement, the same forces. So then we are sitting down, like sitting on something elastic. Your body pushing back, toes of front foot as if catching, grasping ground. Between legs, idea of stretching, between this knee and this area here, stretching. Between head, back and toes of front foot, idea of stretching, some spring. And you move back to position 7 in back. So it was quite big movement. 7, so got 7 in back, or most of weight on back leg, to 5-5. In Jiangchuan, the difference will be that the movement will be much shorter. So it's what we call 7 in back. I start moving forward, but it's very short movement. So basically I still could call this 7 in back. There's some small change, but no need to think about 1-2%. It's very small. How small? How to make it the right range? Look here at your palm, at your fingers. Here I stopped, okay, relaxing. Now I start moving, overcoming the resistance of the tree, feeling all those forces about which I was just talking a moment before. Slowly, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And during this time, this finger moved at very short distance, maybe like 2 centimeters, maybe 1 inch. So this is big movement, but at the beginning you should practice this big movement. You remember that. In Jiangchuan we practice so-called movement in non-movement, just starting the movement, not continuing it. But for a beginner it would be too difficult. So at the beginning we are making the movement longer, especially that there will be some additional movements which will be shorter. So if you make the main movement too short, then it would be impossible to feel those additional movements. Not possible for a beginner. So this short movement at the beginning is relatively long, like 2 centimeters. Still, with many beginners, this movement, like 2 centimeters, seems too short. Seems something they are not able to perceive. You're telling them to do 2 centimeters movement and they do 10 or even 20 centimeters. They are not able to control their bodies in such precise way. So, but anyway, they should try. So gradually at later stages it will become shorter and the feeling of your body will become very precise, very supple. When in touch with opponent, you will be able to perceive his very short movements, his very small changes in the direction and amount of force used. So this is very important. This is something on which the practical fighting skill of each one is based in very big part. So slowly, 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 very evenly, the same speed, the same amount of force, not changing it. Stop. Okay, it was like 2 centimeters. Wait, as if shifted a little bit forward, but it's extremely small change, so we still could call it 7 in back. Several seconds relaxing, feeling comfortable, then changing direction, moving back. Of course, we'll be sitting down, stretching those springs, toes grasping ground, and so on. But you have those feelings, those ideas, but it's very small, very subtle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stop. The movement was something like 2 centimeters. You don't need to measure it exactly, but it should be relatively small. Now, in your hands, there is not just forward force and then backward force, but there are those additional forces, like in Shi Li exercises. So, when pushing forward, there's pressing inward. This is something which we call closing, pressing inward. Then, when pulling back, there is some open, stretching outward. And this is the second direction. And the third direction, when pushing forward, there's some idea of pressing down. Not this idea of your arm from here, but more like this, your whole body. Forward, some pressing down, stop. Then backward. Here sitting down, but here some lifting up idea. So those forces are smaller because they are additional forces. It's not the main force. So forward, idea of bigger force, closing inward and pressing down, additional smaller forces. Stop for several seconds, then when pulling back the main force and opening and lifting up at the same time. When here is idea of sitting down is additional forces. So because those forces are smaller, also the movements in those directions will be smaller. So if the main movement is like 2 centimeters, then those movements in additional directions will be shorter, like 1 centimeter, maybe just half centimeter. You see, if you try it, the main movement too short, then those additional movements will be such small that as a beginner you will not be able to perceive them. This is why we're making the movement in the main direction a bit bigger. So the movements in the additional directions could be smaller and you could still perceive them. You could still perceive the relation between those forces, the proportions of those forces, which is bigger, which are smaller, which movement is bigger, which movements are smaller. So still, this is quite a high standard for beginners. Beginners should make it kind of their goal at first, not the first goal being the level of function Jai, but the first level is being able to practice in this simplified way, in a way adapted for beginners, because it's very often that you explain where is the main direction of force, where are additional forces which should be smaller, there should be idea of smaller forces, also there should be smaller movement, but many beginners are not able to make it. Seems so simple, but still they think they are doing it right, but you look at them and instead of forward there's too much downward force, or instead the main being forward you see more closing. Then there will be other variants of Molly where you will focus on different directions, and for example this opening and closing will be the main direction, and practitioner, a beginner, thinks that he is accenting this opening and closing more, but you see that he's moving forward and backward more. So he's not really feeling his body. So there is a lot of work to be done at such basic level, at the level of basic coordination between your mind and your body. So you know what you do and you actually do what you think you do. So here we are thinking about being inside a tree. So the resistance is bigger than when we started Molly in half posture thinking about water. But at the beginning, when you just start learning those combat postures, you should not think about very big resistance, about too big resistance, because that would make you tense and stiff. So it's better to think about smaller resistance. So even if you think about resistance of a tree, you imagine that the tree is quite soft, maybe a bit elastic, so the resistance is not so big. Later, when you practice for longer time, it will become easier for you to maintain this state of relaxation while at the same time having idea of extremely big power, overcoming some resistances, but don't do this at the very beginning. At the very beginning, think about small resistance. So I start moving, remember all those forces in your body, feel them, overcoming resistance of the tree, but it's a bit soft, a bit giving way, so I'm able to move like those 2 centimeters in the main direction and like 1 or less in those additional directions. Also, stopping for several seconds gives you opportunity to check your body, to notice if you didn't become too stiff, if some unnecessary tension didn't appear in your body. You do this, you stop. You have time to control your body. Even if you don't notice, it's very good to stop and for several seconds to focus on relaxing your body before you do Molly in the opposite direction. So don't do it like, okay, I said the tree is a bit elastic, so it's like you're pushing forward, sometimes people, okay, they pushed something elastic, so after this, then it's like some force is pushing them back. This would be one way of practice, but not really good at this stage, because this way, if you are not able to relax, it will just build more and more tension. So it's better to think overcoming resistance, but then stop and all the resistance is disappearing, all the forces disappearing, just very basic elastic feeling in all directions, and focusing on feeling comfortable. And then again thinking about force, not just pushing and some force pushing you, or pushing and pulling, but pushing, stop. So this is called tension and relax. The part where we push is called tension. We are trying to stay relaxed. Whole body quite relaxed, although there is some feeling of very, very subtle force strength in all your body, all parts, and very small and very homogeneous. The same feeling everywhere. Not, especially not tensing locally. But this is called tension. Although this is called tension, you are trying to stay relaxed. Okay, but this is called tension, but staying relaxed. Then, when you stop, this is called relaxed, because you actually focusing on relaxing. Okay, several seconds of relax, and then moving back, pulling. Okay, overcoming resistance, but at the same time trying to stay relaxed. This is called tension. When there is this idea of mohi, of overcoming some resistance, this will be called tension, but you should try to stay relaxed. As you should already know, it's not about being completely relaxed. It's something like almost relaxed, without using too much force, but your whole body is activated. You feel some force, but you feel that you're not tensing, that you're staying relaxed, while your whole body is working in a very even way. The same feeling in all parts, any part of your body. One more thing here. Basically, it should be kind of obvious, but sometimes people doing it wrong. So when I push forward, it's like pushing with your whole body. Your body is moving, your arms are moving, there's this pressing up, there's this pressing, squeezing inward. But if you're talking about forward, it's like everything is moving together. But some beginning students start doing it like this. So it's like 并推施力. Yes, you push something away from your body in 并推施力. But you're not supposed to do this when practicing Mo Li in Hun Yuan Zhuang. It's not that you're trying to push something away from your body, but the feeling that you're trying to keep this object which you are embracing, embrace it, even squeeze it more, while at the same time pushing forward. The same with backward. Not pulling your hands closer to your body, but everything moving back with this idea of opening and some slight lifting up. You should know that at the beginning you should not focus on combat postures training too much. At the beginning, you focus more on health postures, but you start also combat postures. Maybe for some of you it is easy. It would be easy to relax, so could focus a bit more on combat postures from this early stage, but for some other people it might be more difficult, so they should not practice combat postures so much at this stage, but focus more on health postures. So you should observe yourself, you should notice what's happening, so your own practice would be adjusted in the right way. And when you do Molly, idea of overcoming some force, stop, don't hurry, stop for several seconds. It will be opportunity to focus on relaxation. Also, sometimes you could stop for a longer time and practice this. This is basically called combat posture, but you could practice it like you practice health postures, with the idea of feeling nice, being nice place, body floating in water. You could also close your eyes if you like. Sometimes you could change position. Practicing Molly, of course, you're changing position, but then you could practice it like health posture, also sometimes changing position, sometimes closing eyes, because when practicing health postures, it's not so important. Sometimes you can have your eyes closed, sometimes open, which you prefer, which helps you to relax, which helps you to focus, which helps you to tranquilize your mind. But when practicing chili, when practicing combat postures, when practicing other exercises, normally you keep your eyes open, looking at some very distant place. Because in fighting, it's better to keep your eyes open. So practicing combat postures, eyes open, using so-called Yen Shen, eyes spirit. But sometimes even when you practice combat postures, when you practice Shili, or for some time you could close your eyes if it helps you to feel better what you should feel inside. But this closing eyes would be something additional, supplemental, while in health postures very often this is the main way of practice. It doesn't matter so much. So health postures open or closed, combat postures usually open, but sometimes if you close them for some shorter times, it's okay. Now you probably will hear, you will read somewhere some teachers not advising practicing Jangwang with eyes closed, or when closing them, not closing them completely, so they are a bit or almost closed, but you still could see the ground in front of you. Okay, you could practice this way too, but sometimes people just tell you about this. Don't practice Jangwang with eyes closed, but they don't tell you the reason, and maybe they don't know the reason. Actually, from what I noticed, what I heard from people who were able actually to explain this when teaching beginners, it was usually when they were teaching people who were practicing just for health and some older people, some weak people, some having balance issue. So they told them not to close the eyes because it could be kind of dangerous for them. They would lose balance. So in case of those people, it's better to keep eyes open because it helps them to keep balance. Or if closing a little bit, still not closing completely. For such people, if closing eyes, there's bigger risk of losing balance, falling down and injuring their bodies. But you should not care too much about this if this is not a problem for you. So this was the most basic introduction to the most basic of the combat postures and to the most basic variant of Mo Li practiced in combat postures. Then in next lessons you will learn other different variants of Mo Li. Then you will learn next combat postures, which some other sub-variants of Mo Li will be introduced. Then, when you complete the basic level program, which in a way is the complete program because it includes everything from Jianzhuan, Shili, Fa, Li, Mocabu, of course, Shisheng, Tui Shou, pushing hands, some introduction to San Shou, free fighting, working with stick, and many supplementary exercises like hitting back, hitting butt, and so on. So it seems like the complete system, but this is just basic level. When you complete basic level, you will learn intermediate level, where you will kind of repeat everything which you learned at the basic level, but you will be prepared already to learn it at a bit more advanced level with some changes. Then this intermediate level will prepare you to learn the same things at still more advanced level, which is usually just called advanced level. And after you complete the advanced level, you will be ready, you will be prepared, you will have the good basis for starting the real Yiquan study. So it's like this. People imagine that, okay, you do some Jianzhuan and you develop some powers. No, it doesn't work like this. It's like with any study. You go higher, higher, deeper, deeper. With each next stage, you move back to the basics, but because you went over some process, those basics will be completely different for you. It will seem that you are doing the same thing as a beginner, but it's completely different content inside. It's completely different level. So it could be said that the learning is like going in circles or like a spiral, because circle is like one level, but it's not moving to the same point. You start from here, you make one circle, but moving higher. So when you come back to the same point, see, it's higher. Next circle, as if it was the same point, but higher again. Higher and higher, but in circles. So Wang Xiangjai, the founder of Yiquan, when he was explaining the whole training process till to the last part, then said and wrote actually in one of his books, when you arrive at the beginning of beginning, start from the beginning once again. So this, what he was explaining, like leading to the final point, was not final point. The final point was just beginning of the beginning, being ready for deeper study. Start from the beginning once more. So this is to make you understand that when you start learning, you know how to practice something. It's not about practicing it this way all your life. It is only a stage, beginning stage, something which prepares you to practice next things, different things, but also which prepares you to practice the same thing, but at higher level. So there's a lot of learning, and even if this could seem quite simple from the point of view of someone who is at high level, because it seems like one thing, one principle, everything is so simple. But for a beginner, it needs experiencing things, thinking about them, trying to look at them from different points of view before they get some understanding at some moment. But then, after some time of practice, actual experience, getting instruction from teacher, getting experience from practice with partner, then about the same things you have next this cover. So it's learning and learning. You should not think that each one is something that which is just you learn for a very short time and you practice and you develop miraculous powers. It's very naive. It's just a misunderstanding. Each one is simple in form, but is rich in content. Also, what Wang Xiangjai said. So you really need to put a lot of effort. You should not think that you would be able to learn from some online courses. Even those things like Zhangjuan, like Shili, it needs a lot of direct contact. Each one, like anything, is something which needs a lot of time spent on learning, on training, needs a lot of direct contact between teacher and student. And even if we did some online video consultation, it wouldn't be the same as coming to seminar, coming to our intensive courses, because very often it's like student thinks that he has some problem, but during the courses, seeing the student in different situations, I can see that actually his problems are somewhere else than he is thinking. So if he asks me something online, maybe I give him some answer, but maybe it's not really so good, because this is what I notice many times. Students ask me something, then I observe them during practice, and I see that the real problem is not where they were thinking the problem was. So during the courses I observe various people. Some have more problems, some have less problem, so I can give them enough attention. I can notice their real problems and not only those which they think they have, and I can help them much more. Also, actually, the very important part is partner training. And this is not impossible to do just by yourself. Even people who come to the courses, they could have this problem that they have no training partner. So sometimes the only opportunity for them to practice with partner is coming to our courses and seminars. And this is not only important from the point of view of learning those exercises with partner, but also from the point of view of practicing Zhan, Zhuan, Shili and those basic methods. Because you don't really understand them so much if you don't practice with partner. It is when it comes to practice with partner when you actually start understanding what you are doing and why you are doing. And this practice with partner helps you to improve your basic training. So those videos are some help, especially that at our courses, when I explain something, maybe after some time people forget, but with those videos you could move back to something what you learned before. You can view it some more times, so there's less risk for forgetting some things which you learned at our courses. Maybe for some people those videos could serve as some help for preparing for actual participation in our courses, but anyway, when you come to one of them, you will notice some difference. You will notice that many things you thought you understood, you misunderstood. So all the time there is a need of correction. Even when people practice regularly at the regular classes, they think they understood something, and again it needs correction, it needs new explanation to get rid of some misunderstanding. This is normal process of learning. Also, practice with partner will be something which makes a very big difference. So this is important. So I also hope that if you are interested in learning each one, you will find some more people in your place, your area, with whom you could practice. The best would be if they also could come to the courses, learning from the source, but if they are not able, if at least one person at some place, some area is able to come to the courses regularly, it would be good if that person, of course provided
has some basic learning ability or also teaching ability, that this person would teach some people or at least someone more people, because sometimes people start learning and they give up. So it would be better if you can find some more people interested. You start teaching them some basic things, some basic shili, so you could practice with them. It would be much better if than just practicing basic exercises, solo exercises at home, and partner exercises only once or twice a year, or even once or a month, because you gradually will be able to understand more and more, notice more and more, and improve your practice. And from what you get from practice with partner, you will be able to use this to improve your solo practice, including the most basic Zhangzhuang and Shi Li. Without this, it will not be the same.